If you are listening to our short clips on TikTok or Instagram, please visit the link in our bio or visit greatdayradio.com. Welcome to Great Day Radio's City Lines, the podcast where we unpack the policies, culture, and systems that shape our neighborhoods. I'm DJ Mikey D. For this podcast, we're tackling a topic many of you have noticed but maybe never paused to examine: why lottery billboards and promotions are disproportionately placed in poorer Black and Latino neighborhoods rather than wealthier suburbs. We'll look at the economics, the marketing logic, and the deeper patterns of systemic racism and bias that underlie these choices. To start, let's describe the phenomenon. Walk down many urban corridors in majority Black or low-income areas, and you'll see frequent ads for state lotteries, billboards, corner store posters, posters in buses, and in-store signage. In wealthier, often whiter suburbs, you see far fewer of these ads and more messaging about investments, financial advisors, higher-end retail, or lifestyle brands. That contrast isn't random. On the surface, advertisers, including lottery marketing teams, will often point to simple market logic. They place ads where they expect the highest return on investment. Lotteries are gambling products that rely on frequent repeat purchases. Research and sales data show that sales per capita can be higher in lower-income neighborhoods. So, from a narrow business perspective, concentrating marketing where people already buy more makes sense. But makes sense in a business sense doesn't absolve the strategy from ethical scrutiny. When you examine how those marketing choices intersect with historical and structural inequalities, a pattern emerges. Decades of disinvestment, targeted predatory lending, and fewer paths to wealth have left many communities with limited access to capital building opportunities. Aggressive promotion of a low-odds chance at a big payoff, like a lottery, can exploit economic vulnerability. This is where systemic racism comes in. Advertising decisions don't exist in a vacuum. Targeting neighborhoods with large Black or brown populations for gambling products echoes a long history of extracting wealth and reinforcing cycles of poverty. Redlining, racially discriminatory housing policies, and unequal school funding concentrated poverty in certain neighborhoods. Corporations and public agencies that market lotteries often follow those maps of disadvantage rather than ignoring them. There's also the role of data and algorithmic targeting. Modern ad placement increasingly uses geodemographic segmentation and retail sales data. Those tools flag neighborhoods with heavy lottery purchases and push more advertising there. The algorithms are blind to race in a legalistic sense, but they use proxies, neighborhood income, past purchase behavior, store foot traffic, that correlate strongly with race because of segregation, so automated systems can perpetuate the same patterns as human decision makers. Another point: public lotteries are run by state governments. When a state promotes its own lottery in disadvantaged neighborhoods, it raises a moral question. Are public institutions effectively profiting from the economic hardship of their most vulnerable residents? Some see it as a voluntary activity that funds public programs like education. Others see it as a regressive revenue mechanism, one that takes a larger share from lower-income people than from the wealthy. Studies show that lottery revenue is often regressive. Lower-income households spend a higher percentage of their income on tickets. So when lottery advertising is concentrated in those communities, the result can be a disproportionate contribution to state coffers coming from people who are least able to afford it. There's also the visual and cultural effect. Constant billboard messaging that frames winning the lottery as a route out of poverty can shape aspirations and normalize a certain kind of hope, a hope dependent on chance rather than on systemic opportunity. That messaging can crowd out information about resources that build long-term wealth, financial literacy programs, homeownership assistance, small business support, job training. Let's talk about explicit bias in advertising practices. Historically, some advertisers have deliberately targeted marginalized communities for products like high-interest loans, predatory payday services, and alcohol. With lotteries, it's sometimes less explicit. Marketing teams justify placements by sales figures, but the outcome is similar. Commercial pressures and biases concentrate certain kinds of messaging where people can least afford the cost. And remember the agency of local businesses. Corner stores, bodegas, and convenience stores in poorer neighborhoods often rely on lottery sales as a reliable income stream. Store owners may request or welcome promotional materials because they make money from ticket sales. That creates a feedback loop. Stores sell tickets, ad buys focus on those neighborhoods, people there see more ads, and so on. So we have economic logic, corporate targeting, algorithmic reinforcement, historical segregation, and the role of local retail, all combining to produce the pattern we see. What are the consequences? Beyond the financial burden on low-income households, concentrated gambling advertising can reinforce negative stereotypes about neighborhoods and reduce political pressure to address root causes like underfunded schools and limited job opportunities. It also concentrates harm. Problem gambling, debt stress, and the psychological impact of constant messages promising miraculous escape via luck all disproportionately affect communities already dealing with structural stressors. Housing instability, unemployment, health disparities, that makes the social costs of targeted lottery advertising greater than the revenue it brings. What could be done differently? First, greater transparency from state lotteries about where and how they market could allow public scrutiny. Policymakers could place limits on advertising in areas with high poverty rates or restrict certain marketing practices near schools and social service centers. Some advocates suggest directing lottery revenue more explicitly toward programs that benefit the communities paying the most. For instance, local education, affordable housing, or community development initiatives with strict accountability. Others call for alternative revenue models that don't rely on regressive gambling income. There's also the option of regulation similar to tobacco and alcohol advertising, restricting ad placement, banning billboard ads in certain zones, or curbing targeted digital ads in vulnerable communities. And on the technological side, auditing the data and algorithms used for ad placement could help identify and prevent proxy discrimination. Finally, community empowerment matters. Supporting local economic development, creating more equitable access to jobs and financial services, and promoting financial education would reduce the economic precarity that makes lottery marketing effective and harmful. Shifts in advertising follow shifts in demand, and demand follows opportunity. Before we wrap up this episode, let's address a common pushback. Some people argue that lottery ads in poor neighborhoods are giving people hope and offering a fun, voluntary form of entertainment. How do we reconcile that? It's true that some people enjoy playing the lottery and that a small number do win life-changing prizes. The issue is scale and context. When whole communities are flooded with messages encouraging frequent play as a viable economic strategy, and when those communities are the ones most harmed by poverty, the ethics of targeting become questionable. Policy and marketing choices should at least account for those broader impacts. To sum up, lottery billboards are more common in poor and black neighborhoods because of a mix of sales-driven marketing, algorithmic targeting, historical segregation, and economic dynamics that make those areas higher-yield markets. The result is a pattern that amplifies inequality and raises questions about public responsibility, corporate ethics, and how we want revenue systems to work in a just society. If you're interested in reading more, we'll include sources and studies on lottery spending by income, the geography of lottery retail outlets, and research on targeted advertising and algorithmic bias in our episode notes. You can also visit greatdayradio.com to add your comments and read more on the subject. Thanks for listening. We'll be back for our next episode, examining how zoning rules shape access to parks and healthy food. If you liked this episode, subscribe, share, and tell us what neighborhood ad patterns you've noticed. Be sure to take our brief survey at greatdayradio.com. Take care.